Hi, my name is Kuan and I'm a small business owner here in Silicon Valley, and today I'm here with LeRon Barton.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is LeRon Barton. I'm a writer, author, and speaker.
And we are speaking about the power of sharing your story. The main reason why we're here is because we both believe in sharing your story. Each and every one of you has such a powerful story to tell the world, like the lessons that you've learned, the life that you've lived, the hard times you've been through, all those things you've gained wisdom from, and that is something that can be shared with others, and that is valuable to them so they don't feel alone, so they don't feel like so it gives them hope.
I echo what Kat has said. The thing about telling your story is that you are referencing the good and the bad. And when you own all that, and when you're able to tell your story, not only is that going to impact you and give you confidence, but it may also impact others. I've always believed that we are walking inspirations. So I believe that in life, we must move as if we're inspiring somebody. And so you never know that the story that you tell about yourself may inspire someone else to make a decision, to make a move, and that person may inspire someone else. So in a sense, it's all about being of service and paying it forward.
So we hope that this message and just sparks ideas in your mind of like how you can put yourself out there, and share the skills and ideas you have with other people.
So you guys, the great thing about telling your story is that there's so many ways to do it, right? So, Kat and I, we both written books, but you can also publish articles. You can create your own podcast. You can create small videos. You can do public speaking. There's so many different ways to do that. So first, I'm going to start off with a class that I teach at the San Francisco County Jail. So I teach a creative writing course there twice a month. And one of the things that I encourage my students is that as a writer, it is my responsibility, my duty to encourage people to write. And one of the things that I constantly hammer home is that there's no rules in writing a story. Many people get caught up with the technique. Oh, well, am I supposed to start this way? Is it supposed to end this way? Forget the rules. One of the greatest writers to live was Toni Morrison. She once said that if there's a book out there and that it hasn't been written, then you need to write the book. And it's all about, not worrying about conventions, but being original. I have a student in my class, Patrick. He's incredible. And one of the great things about Patrick is that he writes these stories, he writes these poems that they're just stylistically unlike anything that I've ever read. And I'm constantly encouraging them, hey, don't worry about how John Steinbeck wrote, or don't worry about how Langston Hughes composed a poem. Just write how you write, and write what you know. And I think that when Patrick is released, he's going to do something with his talent.
I love that story. Just like the fact that you're helping people express themselves and pull out their voice, right, and acknowledge that it matters, and then just all this creative energy just flows out. And it's almost like you don't worry about like what is going to come out. You don't have to worry about the words or if you're going to say it perfectly. You literally just have to show up.
Just right.
Yeah.
You know, just grab a piece of paper or like, you know, just sit at your laptop and just start right.
Yeah. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about kind of the different forms of publishing, of ways you can get your story out there. So we'll start with social media.
Right. So, so I am on social media. Like I've got so many platforms. I use Facebook. I use Twitter. I use LinkedIn. I use Instagram. I'm capping it right at 4. I do not need any more apps. But the main reason why that I use social media is to get my story out there. For example, when I use Twitter, I'm constantly tweeting about things that I care about, such as politics, ending mass incarceration. I care about tech, so I'm constantly tweeting about that. When I post on Instagram, I'll take a picture and I'll write sort of a small little essay, or even I may put something up on my blog. And the great thing about these avenues of social media is that many people use different platforms, so they're able to read and see who you are. But also, you know, you can scroll through your stuff a year later, 2 years later, and you can see where you were. You can see the growth within your writing. So it's almost like it's an online journal. But so again, like there's so many different ways to get your story out. You know, some people use social media to gossip. That's cool. I don't do that though. I would like to say that I'm using social media as a way to not only put myself out there, but to make the world a better place.
You can use it to connect with people too, like at a networking event. You know, if you meet someone, you hit it off, and you just are really interested in their work, connect with them on LinkedIn. That's kind of how you can grow your network.
That's a great example, Kat. That's how Kat and I met. We met at an event earlier this year. We connected on LinkedIn, and we just started talking, and we sort of grew this relationship. And you know, that's the great thing about networking. Is like you meet so many different people that you may have not ever met, or may not ever meet through your regular channels. I mean, I don't know if I would have came across Kat, but I'm so glad that I did, and that was ultimately through LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next form of publishing, which is articles.
Right. So as a writer, there are 3 things that I believe that a writer must do. We must tell the truth. We must. Ernest Hemingway, in his Nobel Peace Prize speech, his Nobel Prize of Writing, he said an author's responsibility is to write something that has not been written, or try to create something that is not there. And also the third responsibility of a writer is to encourage other people to write. When I began to write articles, I got published at a website called The Good Men Project. The Good Men Project is a site that is dedicated to giving voice to men trying to figure out what is masculinity, race, gender, sports. And so from there, I grew as a writer. And so I remember that I began to pitch my subjects out to different outlets. And I came across an outlet called mediadiversity.org, and I wrote a piece called Why I Don't Code Switch. And the funniest thing, the article was fairly popular, and I got an email from PayPal stating that I was paid $37. And let me tell you something. Like, I had never been paid for my writing before, so I was like, $37. What? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was just stupid excited, and it was one of the best feelings in my life because it said to me that not only is what you're saying valid, but people are able to pay you for it. And so from there, that gave me the confidence to pitch to other outlets and to get paid, writing. And so, it's like, I never forget that. And so that's the great thing about writing articles.
Yeah.
So.
I love that story. You get paid for your writing, so that is a huge accomplishment. And then from there, like, it'll just snowball, and you're gonna get so many writing gigs from there for sure.
So now, in addition to writing, another medium to get your story out there is to create videos on YouTube, and Kat is an expert about that. So why don't you talk about that?
Expert, but I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Kat Kuan, and I started it when I was self-publishing my children's book. So literally, my first video was, "Hi YouTube, I want to write a children's book. I'm gonna put this out there so I don't flake out. You guys can keep me accountable." And so then, like, it became a series. I was like learning how to draw, like stick figures, and I was showing people the books I was using or the sketches that I was doing, and then like unboxing the first copy of my book and holding it in my hand. And so it kind of evolved from there, and people started following along. And then as I pivoted into fashion, like started doing style makeover videos and like style tips and stuff like that. Or sometimes if I go to a restaurant, I'll bring it and I'll bring it as a vlog, like, "Hey guys, look what I'm eating." Your YouTube channel can be any topic that you want. It could be any interest. Like, there's no rules to that, like he was saying. And it's just a great way for people to get to know you better. It's like when you show your face, you show up, people like can see and understand who you are and your story. So that's a really valuable tool for how you can start to establish or to start to share your story and your skills with the world. Say you're really good at cooking, or if you're really good at fixing things, you can make a YouTube channel on that. So that's an option. But if you're camera shy and you don't want to be seen on camera, another thing you can do is a podcast, which is just your voice. So with a podcasts are just becoming so popular these days, right? Like when you're commuting, just like people are just always listening to something, and it's a great way to learn, and it's longer form. People will listen for a longer period of time. And so I have a podcast, it's called What Kat Found Out, and I do like little snippets of like what life like an entrepreneur is like and the lessons I've learned are. But you can also do monologue style, just talk about your life, whatever you're going through. Or you can interview other people. So you don't know what to write, you can interview your friend, your coworker, your mom. Like, all these people have stories, and just amplifying other people's stories can also be what you do on your podcast.
And also, one of the great things about podcasts is that you can also be a guest on someone else's podcast. So now you may think, "Man, look, I don't have anything to talk about. Why would anyone want to interview me?" Get that out of your mind. There are so many different kinds of podcasts out there. I mean, there are podcasts about sports, tech, writing, cars, machines, like podcasts about living in the Bay Area, podcasts that are based on mass incarceration. Look, there's so many different podcasts. I mean, I've been on, maybe about 75 podcasts. So I sometimes am so tired of hearing myself talk. But I mean, still, like, what I'm telling you is that your story is worth being a guest on someone's podcast. Don't ever think that what you have to say or what your experiences are, no one wants to hear it, because I guarantee you there's someone out there who wants to hear what you have to say. So that's another way, and it's another crucial way of putting yourself out there, because as Kat said, there's people listen to podcasts, commuting, driving, working out. I mean, I've listened to about 30 different podcasts. So if anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. But still, like, there's a podcast that's out there for you. So don't be afraid to just ask them, "Hey, are you looking for guests? Can you, would you mind me being a guest on your show?"
Yeah. For somebody, I could approach you and get on your podcast?
If I had a podcast, and if your story was was applicable to my podcast, sure. Like I know of a podcast, like one of my really good friends, Summer, she interviews like awesome women. Kat was on her show. Kat's episode was incredible. So that's the thing. It's like, don't ever think like that you can't be on a podcast because you can.
We can help you find the right podcast to be a guest on. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you have a book or
Yeah.
two or
Yeah.
three percolating within,
Yeah.
what I'm finding it difficult to, get everything down
Yeah.
and then continue as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So is that like writer's block?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
And how do you fix that?
Yeah. So when I first started my blog, which is, I guess, a similar type of project, I had writer's block. I wanted I wanted to have a blog, but I couldn't get myself to like start publishing and releasing content on it. And my mind kind of just went blank, and I started to just like feel like, oh, what should I write? Just getting overwhelmed by that. And I went to a writers group where it's a group of writers, different levels. So you could be a complete beginner and just show up, and there'll be a person giving you a prompt or just some time to work on your project. So the prompt was like, oh, what's your favorite role model? And then I just like wrote a couple paragraphs on that, and then you share it. But it's literally the act of writing that helps you get into the flow of things. I would also write like Yelp reviews, like, hey, try this restaurant, it's great. Yeah, and it's like for fun, right? But you're literally writing, and then that just like makes you feel like, okay, if I could write those things, like I can write something for my book. It doesn't even have to be a great draft, just write something. Exactly.
Like, the great thing about writing is like it can always be edited, right? So going back to Ernest Hemingway, look, Ernest Hemingway is one of the greatest writers of all time, but dude could barely write a sentence. So, I mean, real talk. So he had a great editor that would say, okay, this needs to go out, this needs to go out. I'm pretty sure Kat would agree with me that your first draft is never going to be great. It's just what you're putting down. So don't, there's a term that I like to use, don't have paralysis by analysis. So don't just be just like, okay, well, I got to get this perfect. I mean, Kat, like your first draft. Can you talk about that for a little?
It had the ugliest stick figures, the words. It was like the tone didn't really work for kids. It was just, you have to be willing to make it really bad in order for it to be good. So just write the crappiest version you can, and then it probably won't be that crappy, and then you go from there. But. Oh, I heard it through, I think it was through a friend, and it was part of the church or something, but you can just search writers groups or form your own, just get a bunch of friends and come together to work. Yeah. And we'll be available for questions, so we'll just wrap it up with like one last comment from each of us.
Yeah, so basically, as two writers, we understand the power of words. And I feel like that not only do we all have a book in us, but how we live our life matters, right? And so, either through writing, through speaking, through doing a podcast, through articles, blogging, vlogging, just never lose sight that your life, your story matters, and it's important that you tell your story, not somebody else, because they're never going to get it right. And when you tell your story, that builds confidence in you, and I guarantee you, it's just going to go from there.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I love that. And I would say that when you start to write and stuff, you're an artist, and the artist's journey is never easy. You're gonna write something that you spent a week on and no one will read it. You're gonna create a video that you spent hours editing and no one will watch it, but that's how you start. And you shouldn't, it's normal, so expect that, but just don't get disappointed by that, because you'll build up from there. And you have to keep showing up and keep being consistent, keep sharing your story, keep writing articles, and then you'll notice that people start to listen, start to watch, and people will be silent, like they won't even like comment or anything. But I'll run into someone and they'll be like, "Oh, I loved what you did," and I had no idea because they never commented or anything. But people are watching and will pay attention, so just keep showing up. Thank you so much. Good job. Thank you, Joseph.